Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you're joining us from. We're just going to start with a quick land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this webcast originates from the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples and is being received across unceded territories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples across Turtle Island and beyond. Indigenous peoples have been stewards of this land since time immemorial, and their relationship with the natural world holds lessons we are only beginning to understand. We honor that stewardship and recommit to the responsibility we all share to care for this planet for the generations who will come after us.
Welcome to Earth Day. I'm Natalie Lowe. I'm the founder of TSEF, and I am delighted to have you here for our 7th Earth Day for Event People. I can't believe we've been doing this for 7 years. So we're doing it early this year because so many people are now doing events on Earth Day, which, believe it or not, was part of the plan all along. And for the next 50 minutes, what we're going to do is take you through a hierarchy of actions that you can take that we've decided, I guess, in our infinite wisdom, we could be wrong, but what we've done is we've created what we think is a nice compromise between what actually makes a difference and what is doable. So we're probably not all going to stop flying tomorrow, and we're probably not all going to go vegan tomorrow. But what can we do? And what are the things that we can start to create as a baseline for our industry to make progress? So a quick note on where this came from, because I want you to be able to trust the process that we went through. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I've done a whole bunch of carbon assessments, and we determined where the emissions are coming from. We looked at everything to do with events, and then we listened to those of you who are out in the field doing it and what was possible and what was really difficult. And we continue to evolve on that so that we're always making progress. Couple of housekeeping, and the chat window is open. I think many of you are chatting away in there. We are a very warm and friendly group, and we do not take ourselves very seriously. You're going to find that out during Climate Update. We take climate sustainability and our actions very seriously, ourselves not so much. Please interact in the chat, get to know each other, make some friends. And if you need help from Melissa, she's overseeing the chat. And if you have any tech issues, AV Canada is here to sort of help you through. I want to give a little bit of a thank you to Arash and Edwin and the team who are making us all look good, waving their hands at me, telling me that I'm on mute. You are absolute pros, and you help us every year completely at their own cost. So thank you, because this wouldn't happen without you. We also want to give a special shout out to Liz at EMA Marketing, CCR Solutions, Explore Waterloo, Ottawa Tourism, and Explore Edmonton. And also, we have some great partners. I want to give a little shout out to Ignite. You guys have been so supportive of us for so long. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As well as CMEE and CSE. And just recently, the Sustainable Events Forum has agreed to go into a partnership with Toronto Climate Week. So we're kind of excited about that. So we're going to dive right into it because we've probably got like 45 minutes at this point. We're going to start at the base of the pyramid, and there's a reason for that. We're going to start with individual choices. You can have the best sustainability policy in the world. You line up all the right vendors. You have all the best intentions, but none of it moves if the people in the room don't actually choose what you've outlined for them. And so that's the harsh reality of being an event professional, is that you have influence. Sometimes you don't have control, but your personal choices actually make a big difference here. So Melissa Delorier really gets this better than anyone I know in the industry. She's been around for a long time, and she understands that we are always in a compromised position. Our clients, our other people, how do we make this all work? And she's a leader at CCR Solutions. She brings a rare combination of practical expertise and genuine passion to this work. So Melissa, take it away.
me start with this. We talk a lot about big sustainability moves in our industry: carbon tracking, supplier standards, venue commitments, all important, but none of it works without us, because the foundation of all of it is individual choice. What we do, what we allow, what we question, what we normalize, that's where culture and shift actually start. Here's a stat that stuck with me. A huge portion of an event's environmental impact is locked in during the planning phase. Let me say that again. A huge portion of an event's environmental impact is locked in during the planning phase. Early decisions shape everything that follows, which means the smallest choices made early enough aren't small at all. They compound. And I've seen this firsthand. I've been in rooms where the default was more screens, more staging, more printed materials, more food, bigger buffets, extra orders just in case. And no one questioned it. Not because people don't care, but because it's what we're used to. Then one person speaks up. Do we need all of this? Not in a confrontational way, just a pause. And suddenly the conversation shifts. We scale back, we rethink, we get more intentional. And the event still delivers, sometimes better. That's the part I want to leave you with. Sustainability in events doesn't start with policy. It starts with permission. Permission to ask better questions. Do we need to ship this, or can we source it locally? Can the scenic element be reused? Do we need this much food, or can we plan more accurately? Can surplus be redirected instead of wasted? Is this print piece necessary, or just something we've always done? Because here's the truth. No one individual is responsible for fixing everything, but every individual influences something. And when enough of us start making slightly different choices, that becomes the new standard. That becomes culture. So if you're wondering where to start here. Pay attention to the defaults. Question what feels automatic. Advocate where you can, and model what you want to see more of. We don't need perfection. We need momentum, and that starts with us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa. She really understands the foundation of what we're trying to do here. And, it matters more than people think. I don't really know what's going on tech-wise, but I see a whole bunch of people under my login. Maybe that was me. I don't know. Anyways, you're all welcome to be me. I'll take responsibility. It's all good. Next, we're going to move up to materials. And I want us to look at materials sitting at tier 2 because it's where individual choices actually start to meet our influence in our events. And this is where you can start to change the footprint of your event. The stuff you bring in, the stuff that ends up in a landfill at the end of the night. And part of the struggle that we have is that we actually pay too much attention to the materials, and we don't pay enough attention to the emissions. So we're going to take a look at that. This is actually Liz Akey's segment, and she's Liz, I have to tease her a little bit because Liz is sort of a little bit famous for being on top of us about our water bottles. So Liz, I absolutely have my water bottle here. And she's known to make a fuss if people show up with plastic water bottles, as she should. So Melissa's actually going to drop into the chat. I don't know if any of you have watched it yet, but the plastic documentary that is on Netflix right now. And kudos to Liz for really pushing that forward. But I know that event materials and sustainability have taken up a lot of bandwidth, And we've pushed it lower down because it actually does not have as large an impact as the emissions. But let's talk about where we can make a choice. So the first image, guys, if you can pull up that image where we look at the carpets and the lanyards, that would be great. I want you to look at this. These are the things that go into the landfill at the end of the event. It's the aftermath of a perfectly normal event. And, you know, as Liz put here, events are magical and messy. And the question that we want to ask is this really what the magic costs? Can we actually have an event that is impactful that doesn't have all of these things put away? So it's what Melissa referred to as challenging our norms. And let's talk about how to make better choices when it comes to materials. There are 4 things that we want to talk about. And the first one is fit the solution to the problem. So recently I was a guest at an event and they gave me a water bottle. It was added to the collection of the 400 that I have already, and a tote bag, which was added to my other collection of tote bags. There is a point where we give things away with our names and logos on them that just don't actually serve a purpose for the person who's receiving them. And, you know, we need to think about, will this item actually get used? I have been talking about usable things like bamboo toothbrushes for years. It's not getting as much uptake, but if you think about it, that bamboo toothbrush eliminates the plastic problem, and people are looking at it at least twice a day for 3 months. So it really gets you where you need to, where your logo or your presence where it needs to be. The second thing in that, I want to talk about impact, not volume, because we tend to think of waste in quantity and we ignore things that are small that cause a lot of harm. And here, what I'm talking about specifically is balloons. So I have a new friend here in our group that we've recently connected because somebody made the argument that the plastic in balloons is only 1% of the total balloon, which is very true. But according to the University of Queensland, that balloon piece, because they start to break down in nature, ingested by a bird is 32 times more likely to kill that animal than any hard plastic or anything else. So the question that you have to look at is, when you are sold some of these sustainable options, are you actually getting the full picture? Right? So it takes 4 years for latex balloons to break down, but most balloons actually aren't made out of latex. So you need to just think about, it's not how big that item is, but how dangerous it can be when it gets disposed of. The third thing, and this is something that we come across everywhere, is that recycling is often used as, well, I'll buy this because it's recyclable, but you need to consider the jurisdiction that it will be disposed of in. And plastic is very problematic for recycling. So the issue is 4 years for balloons to break down. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. But so when for example, across different jurisdictions, we no longer see glass being recycled, because when things are recycled, you need to have somebody willing to buy them on the other end. And there's not a lot of uses for recycled glass. So I want you to be careful if you buy something, say in Chicago, and you're going to be using it in London, does that actually work for the recycling process there? And I would really strongly advise you to be careful about buying something because it is recyclable or biodegradable. I can't get a straight answer on what biodegradable actually is. Everything in the world at the end of the day can break down into its component parts. So just be careful about that. The last thing is something that sounds like a good idea, but actually doesn't really equate to a good idea. And for this, the example that I used was people paying more and purchasing organic cotton. My question is, does anybody need another t-shirt? I don't know. But organic cotton is sort of a huge user of water. And so when you look at these solutions, your greatest tool is to ask questions. Now, there's a huge lever here that you can use, and I say this as someone who has run a DMC for many, many, many years, and that is your DMC. So your DMC will know those things about that local area, tap into them. And sometimes what happens is just you asking the question means that we can move into looking at better solutions. So Liz talked about a couple of things that she wanted me to mention. So I'm going to mention them here. She really likes Colors for Good. They're reusable lanyards. They tell a story about local artisanal gifting. And it also allows attendees to be connected to the place that they're visiting. I know here in Niagara, obviously wine is a big deal, but we're also a food center, and I'm sort of fond of things that people will actually use and move on. So I'm in this awkward position where Liz and Matt were supposed to be presenting on their pieces. They're both busy traveling and in the middle of programs right now. So I'm going to move over, and now I'm going to be Nat for Matt. So I really wanted to get a beard to wear for this portion, but you know, Matt's at an airport somewhere, so we're going to say hello to him. He was just getting off a flight. So firstly, thank you to Liz for all of her input on the materials. She spends a lot of time looking at this, and she's a great resource. But now we get to the big one, and it is true that transportation sits here in the hierarchy because it has to be decided firstly before anything else is done. Where are we actually going to hold this event? So you look at venue selection, attendee origin, logistics. Those are all what we call upstream solutions or upstream decisions, pardon me, that affect your event. And the events that I have done calculations for, I've never seen anything less than 83% emissions from transportation. What the main chemical that comes through, the main gas, is carbon dioxide. So that is mostly what we get from transportation. And I want you to kind of remember that when Terry talks about protein choice and Georgie talks about food waste. So why isn't transportation at 90% at the very top of the hierarchy? It got bumped down because you can't always control transportation. It's really hard to move the levers. We're still going to travel. We're still going to be taking flights. So Matt gave me his perspective on some of this. We agree on 80% of it. We disagree on a couple of the levers, but that's okay. Matt looks at things from a very broad perspective, and I'm looking at them from an event level. So one of the things that we encourage here is that we don't all agree with each other, and that actually helps us develop better solutions. So we enjoy sort of that back and forth. Okay, let's move on to, can you guys move to the next slide for me? Yes, flights first. So destination selection becomes really important. And some of my clients that I've had for a very long time have been doing this for years. They looked at who was coming to the meeting and what was the most central location. And that is really the decision that can help you, whether it is your main meeting site or your offsite venue. Cutting down on that transportation really just helps eliminate the emissions right from the start. It saves money and travel time too. And I guess I'm at the stage in my life where time really matters to me as well. I just, you know, it's sort of the most important currency I have right now is how much time we have left. So when flying is unavoidable, if you have taken my course, you know that I give you a couple of things. You want to take direct routes where possible. You want to pack light, which just means it's going to cost you less, right? But less weight means less fuel burned. And you want to choose daytime flights when you can. And why daytime flights? It's this weird thing that actually has an effect. And Matt explains it later on. Contrails are formed at a higher warming impact, and it's a small thing, but it makes a real difference. And Matt, in his notes to me, explained it a little bit later. So a couple of years ago, I was doing an assessment on an event in Ottawa. And some people drove and some people flew. And imagine my surprise when the emissions for the people who flew were lower than for the people who drove. And when you have those short haul Sorry, did I do that correctly? The flight was less emissions than the driving. So a single person in a car actually has a lot of emissions. And we started to dig into this a little bit. So you just want to be careful because one person in one car is not a very efficient way to travel. So our advice really, at the end of the day, we'd like to see you take the train to shorter distances, but just be careful about the use of the car. Now, the thing is that as soon as you put 2 or 3 people into that vehicle, it makes a big difference, because again, you are using the emissions of the vehicle or the transport mode divided by the number of people that are accessing it. So before you assume anything, calculate it. And we really try to do the calculations as much as possible and then look into sort of those small areas where people aren't noticing. The other thing, and it gets into on the ground here, as a DMC, one of my specialties was really transportation. Occasionally got called the bus babe. Mayor of Pearson Airport on occasion as well. So it did a lot of those short hops. And when you look at it, you want to see where your ground level winds are. And there's a couple of areas. One is provide shuttles and make them the default because they're so much more efficient. Even motor coaches are run more efficiently than individual vehicles do. And you want to go electric if you can, absolutely. And in your know before you, these are Matt's notes that I'm reading here. In your know before you go communication, default to green rideshare options. And please eliminate unnecessary idling for heating or air conditioning. Matt's suggestion here, well, he says, make it a policy, not a suggestion. It costs nothing and it matters. I do have some clients who, if they have a bus, will not reimburse their client or their employees for their own vehicles. And they use that as sort of encouragement to take those. So number 3 is Matt told us, address what you can't avoid. Sometimes you just can't avoid the flight. We know that. So what then? And here Matt talks about sustainable aviation fuel. And what his recommendation is that if you are putting money into offsets, that you divert some of that offset investment and put it into sustainable aviation fuel. Now, this is fairly important because sustainable aviation fuel is sort of hitting a bit of a plateau. And so we as consumers need to encourage it if we want to see it used more. If you are wondering what sustainable aviation fuel is, we'll send you some links in the follow-up to this so that you can dig into it a little bit. But it's basically like the ethanol that is used for cars, right? They use biofuels instead of petroleum fuels. So the last point that Matt gave us was measure what matters. And I have to laugh here. He put this last point, and this one's for the nerds in the room. I see you. Okay, Matt. I'm very happy to be a nerd with Matt. It's fun. When you measure transport emissions, there are 3 approaches. And this is where Matt and I are going to disagree a little bit. So there are 3. There is spend-based calculations, there are distance-based calculations, and there are fuel-based calculations. Fuel-based calculations are very precise. They will tell you exactly what that one trip burned for emissions and what you have coming back. I do not believe that spend-based calculations are, I guess Matt's point is they're better than nothing, and that I would agree with, but I find that they can be a little bit weird right now because the airlines are really playing around a lot with rates. And so I find that that might affect our spend base. So recently I paid less for a flight to Europe than I did to fly to Winnipeg. And that was just, a variable pricing. So that's why I'm cautious about spend-based pricing, but he makes a point that it's better than nothing. You do have to absolutely measure things. So 2 things Matt wants us to consider capture upstream impacts, not just the fuel burned, but the fuel to make the fuel. and radiative forcing. I think that's probably beyond most people at this point. But the one thing that I do want you to consider is not using the ICAO.org for your transportation measurement. So some of you are like, what's ICAO? It's the International Civil Aviation Organization. And what they did was they made a deal with the UN FCCC that they wouldn't have to measure everything. So part of the impact of your flight comes from nitrous oxide and water vapor as something called radiative forcing. And it's like as nerdy as it gets. But you can use atmosphere.com. So it's ATMOS, fair, FAIR.com. And for free, you can go in and track your flight. And they do use nitrous oxide and they do use radiative forcing. So, oh my goodness. First I was Liz, then I was Matt. A lot of you are Natalie. It seems to be the day to be somebody else. So anyways, it's Freaky Friday here at TSEF. Could we have a repeat on that website? Yeah, actually, when we move to the next one, I'll drop it into the chat so that you guys can just click on the link. It's atmosphere.com. So, okay, I think we're going to take a breather now. And Robert Thompson and I put together a little fun thing that we do. Yes, it is a full moon, Georgie, I think. If it's not a full moon, it's our full moon. Robert Thompson and I put together a climate update. We do it. We've done it for about, I think, the last 4 or 5 years, where we get to act very, very silly. Remember what we said, we take climate change seriously. We do not take ourselves seriously. We don't know if we're that funny or not, but we have a lot of fun doing it. So we do it every year. And the facts in our presentation are absolutely real. We are not real newscasters. But anyways, Arash and Edwin, take it away.
It's the TSEF Earth Day Update with Robert Thompson.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Thompson.
And I'm Natalie Lowe. Welcome back to Climate Update, where we cover the news nobody wants to read, so you don't have to feel bad about it all alone.
So let's get started. A baby sea turtle was found stranded far south of its normal habitat in Australia. Scientists describe it as tiny, lost, and constipated.
Oh, same, baby turtle, honestly, same. Animal rescue workers did nurse it back to health on a diet of squid and sardines and confirmed it was disoriented by warming ocean temperatures before they released it back into the wild. Scientists do say it's a warning sign about climate disruption of ocean ecosystems.
Did you know the turtle could not be reached for comment?
It's a turtle, Robert.
Fair. In other news, New Zealand released its National Climate Action Plan. The centerpiece strategy is mass planting of pine trees.
Excellent. I love trees.
Non-native pine trees
Oh, okay. Fine.
that are known to catch fire easily.
Oh, so the carbon goes into the atmosphere, into the tree. There's a fire, it goes back into the atmosphere. That's really not a carbon plan. That's like a bonfire with a few extra steps.
The government says that they are aware of these concerns.
Good that they're aware.
The International Arctic Research Center reported this week that Arctic sea ice just set a new record low, approximately 4,400 square kilometers below the previous record.
Oh, really? When was the previous record set?
Last year.
Oh my goodness, imagine writing that press release. Every year you write the same thing over again. We regret to inform you. Those scientists have the most depressing job ever.
But at least they have great co-anchors. Last weekend, the continental North America experienced snow, tornadoes, record-breaking heat, and a dust storm in the same weekend, Natalie.
Wow, same weekend. Meteorologists called it climate change. The Financial Times called it ridiculous. My elderly neighbor called it unusual weather for March.
And what do you call it?
I'm calling it last Saturday. It was last Saturday.
Saturday. I love Saturdays. Unfortunately, That's a different kind of Saturday.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to love that Saturday.
Scientists and the UK government are now seriously exploring geoengineering, including spraying sun-reflecting particles into the stratosphere and misting seawater onto the clouds to physically cool the planet.
Oh, okay, so sun-reflecting particles like glitter? We're going to put glitter in the sky?
One expert said it would require a fleet of aircraft flying day and night around the planet.
Okay, so we're going to fly more planes to fix the harm caused by the planes, but this time with arts and crafts.
Well, scientists say once starting, it would need to be maintained indefinitely.
Yeah, of course it does. But you know what else is indefinite? Glitter. We're going to glitter the entire planet, and it will never come off.
Well, the airplane people are very excited.
Yeah, I bet.
A study confirmed that rising temperatures are reducing air density, causing baseballs to travel farther, contributing to record home runs in Major League Baseball.
Oh, so greenhouse gases are actually helping baseball, which means the one group actively benefiting from climate change is MLB.
Mm-hmm. Home run records are way up.
Near as we can tell, Commissioner Rob Manfred has not yet publicly thanked fossil fuels.
Yet, Natalie, yet. Yeah. Ocean acidification is causing fish to lose their sense of smell, affecting their navigation and ability to find food.
So these fish are darting around, completely disoriented, underwater, and they can't find food, even though food is all around them?
Correct.
Robert, that's not a fish. That's like an event planner on day 4 of their program.
And I think we need to protect them both.
Agreed.
Rising temperatures are extending the breeding season for rats and boosting their reproduction rates. Urban rats populations are skyrocketing. Scientists say rats are, quoting, thriving.
Okay, so to recap so far, fish are lost, turtles are constipated, polar bears are dating grizzlies.
We'll get to that.
And rats are thriving. Rats have looked at the climate situation and said, finally, our time.
And I say, good for the rats.
Good for the rats.
Climate change and habitat loss are causing animals to interbreed across species, producing hybrids including the growler bear, a grizzly polar bear cross, the coy wolf, a coyote wolf mix, and the blinks, a bobcat lynx hybrid.
I think it should be Wyote. I think coy wolf doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
I love that, Wyote.
Yeah. I gotta say, Robert, in a world of bad climate news, the growler bear is kind of doing something for me. Like, that's an absolute unit. Looking around at the Arctic, saying all of our ice is leaving, and saying, hey, I don't know what's going on in the world, but hey, Mr. Grizzly Bear, you seem fun.
Scientists are concerned about the genetic implications.
Yeah, scientists can relax. The growler bear is thriving like the rats.
The rats and the growler bears.
The winners of 2026 so far.
The only winners of 2026. A White House executive order this year described coal as, direct quote, beautiful, clean, abundant, and cost-effective.
Beautiful?
Beautiful, Natalie.
Coal. The thing that Santa puts in your stocking when you've been bad. Speaking of Santa, Robert, actually, how's the North Pole doing?
Unfortunately, they're melting.
Because of the beautiful coal. You know what, Robert, honestly, Santa had one job, and he chose coal.
He should have given us solar panels now.
In our stockings. Yeah, yeah, we would have both gotten lots of solar panels. He could have given us solar panels, Robert. We were right there.
Bad call, Santa, bad call.
Historically bad call, Santa Claus.
That's your climate update for Earth Date for Event People 2026. I'm Robert Thompson.
I'm Natalie Lowe. We'll be back next year if the ice holds.
It won't.
He's kidding.
I'm not.
That's why you're here. Let's get to work. Okay, so I think we have more fun recording that. There was, I requested tequila, but I was given Bailey's instead. So, can't have everything you want. Welcome back. And now really let's get back to work. And leading the charge on a lot of this work is a dear friend and one of our favorite advisory board members. She's like an Energizer bunny on sustainable batteries. Hannah Pattison is going to talk to Madison Weir about beverages. Beverages sit here in the hierarchy because we found that we have a little bit more flexibility and control over beverages than we thought. It's one place where planners and suppliers can really have a strong direct influence. So every event has drinks, every drink has a footprint. Hannah and Madison are going to look at a couple of key areas: packaging, weight, distance traveled, and volume. And the weight of the glass that they're shipped in, these beverages, actually has a surprising effect on things if you're moving a lot of mass a very long way. So the principle is simple: drink local, source from where you are. Hannah Pattison has been digging into sustainable events for a very long time. I met her at a sustainable events event hosted by MPI, and she's interviewing Madison Weir from Stratus Vineyard, which is a LEED certified winery making smart sustainable choices from vine to glass. That's exactly the kind of sourcing and conversation that we need to have, and they set a great example. So over to Hannah and Madison.
Thirsty yet? Let's talk beverages. I spend my days planning events, which often include food and beverage orders. Applying a sustainability filter to planning has become second nature to me, but last year I was surprised to learn about the impacts of some of our beverage choices at events. For example, all-day coffee service can generate high amounts of waste as well as cost without adding attendee value. Another example, here in Canada, Stella Artois and Corona are produced locally, even though they're considered international beers. But Heineken is proudly made in Europe, so the transportation required to get it here results in a large carbon footprint. Lately, I've just been asking for no Heineken on bars for events in Canada. I'm Hannah Pattison, an advisory board member at the Sustainable Events Forum and manager of events at IGM Financial. Happy Earth Day, everyone. Although we couldn't meet in the same place at the same time, our good friend Madison Weir from Stratus agreed to share some of the great work they're doing to reduce the climate impact of their wines, which means as a planner, it's an easy win for you too. I asked Madison, looking at the life cycle of your beverages, from how ingredients are grown to how the final product reaches customers, what is one change you've made to significantly reduce your carbon footprint, and what impact has that had?
Hello, my name is Madison Weir, and I am the Corporate Sales and Special Projects Manager here at Stratus Vineyards. Over the years, Stratus has implemented many measures to reduce our carbon footprint, especially here on our farm, which you can see behind me. So things such as cover cropping under our vines, which reduces the need for mowing with our tractor and our reliance on supplemental fertilizers. Things like dry farming, a lot of different measures, but something that I wanted to bring up today, we've introduced an innovative technique onto our farm, which has produced 3.4 tons of CO2 emissions per year, and that is implementing biochar on the farm. So on a farm, there is always organic waste, which for us comes in the form of trunks and trimmings. So you can see a vine trunk just over here behind me. If it's left to decompose naturally or burn them, as many in the area do, that releases the carbon into the air. So by transforming this material into biochar, by baking it for a long time in a low oxygen environment, you're able to trap the CO2 from dispersing in the atmosphere, and we can apply it directly into the farm as both a soil amendment and a way to trap carbon. So this creates a full circle system for our farm, which reduces the need of additional fertilizers and reducing our overall waste.
Fascinating. Packaging and service choices play a big role in beverage sustainability. I also asked Madison how Stratus has rethought materials, whether bottles, packaging, or serviceware, to reduce waste or environmental impact without compromising quality or guest experience. Let's see what Madison had to say.
Yeah, so packaging is a big discussion in the wine world because for a long time there was this idea that the heavier the bottle, the more premium the wine. So that was something we certainly followed with this big, beautiful bottle. So this was our original Bordeaux bottle which weighed in at 755 grams before we put wine in here. So as part of a life cycle assessment that we did, we found that the bottle was one of the biggest CO2 inputs of our entire production. Because we farm on site, we make our wine on site in sustainable ways. The next step for us to reduce our overall carbon emissions from our wine production was actually to change the packaging. So we found this beautiful 355 gram bottle, which holds the same volume, but is 350 grams. So that's less than half of the original weight. So on a bottle per bottle basis, that is a 16% CO2 reduction per bottle. So annually, over 7,000 cases, that's quite significant. That's an 18-ton of CO2 reduction from our entire production, which is amazing. So that's been running. We've been bottling in those lightweight bottles since 2020. And then this year, for our 2025 vintage, we're taking another part of our packaging out of the equation. So we've been packaging in tin. It's hard to see here, but we've got a little tin that covers the top of the bottle. And so what we've done is actually eliminate that entirely. So we have a little wax seal up on top instead. So we're reducing all of that tin from our production. The wax is much lighter, much smaller, and biodegrades alongside with the cork, rather than having to be recycled or, unfortunately, the tin ending up in landfill. So we're very excited about that change this year, and we're looking forward to many more changes to come.
Wow. It is incredible the amount of difference that can be made with a change in your beverages at your bar. So I know that there was a problem with the audio, and I just wanted to let you know that one of the things that we discovered working with Hannah on some of her events was that some international beers are actually brewed in Canada. And so we were able to look at that and say these international beers can be offered, but the transportation is local. So it was really interesting. Now, when we were looking at bar service for events around the globe, we checked to see where that beverage is done. Typically, it's your beer and your wine that make the biggest difference because they're such huge volumes. So it was a joy to work with Hannah on that. So thank you. And we're sorry, we'll fix that audio for the recording. So next, we're going to look at protein choices. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of threw this at Terry Doyle because she's such a pro and she's been working through so much of this. But protein sits near the top of the pile for a very specific reason. And that is because of a climate or greenhouse gas called methane. Terry's going to talk about the practical side of this, but just know that one carbon dioxide molecule is equal to, 80 carbon dioxide molecules is equal to one methane. So reducing methane is very important just to get our total emissions down. So great conversation to have with your caterers. Terry, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks so much, Natalie. Happy Earth Day, everybody. I'm Terry Doyle, and I'm the department head for projects, operations, and marketing for North America for International Conference Services. When Natalie asked me to talk about protein, it was a no-brainer for me. I've been a planner for most of my professional life, and I've planned thousands of dinners and meals. And if I can encourage even one client to make a small change, I consider it a big win. But here's the thing, we seem to be stuck. We're stuck in the mentality that if we're having a gala dinner, there must be beef. But why shouldn't we serve beef? What is the big deal? Isn't all animal protein the same? Well, that's what we're going to look at today. If you can go to the next slide. Sorry, go back one. My apologies. Back a slide, please. Okay, so when we are planning an event, we do obsess over the lighting, the AV, the speakers, the swag, a lot of the things that we've already talked about today. But one of the most powerful environmental levers we pull happens in the banquet hall. And when we put what we put on the plate is often the single largest contributor to an event's carbon footprint. Let that sink in for a second. The protein choice is often the single largest contributor to an event's carbon footprint. So today we're going to look at why protein choice isn't just a culinary decision, it's a climate decision. A single conversation with a caterer about the protein default can cut food-related emissions by 50% or more. Just one decision. So let's dive in. Next slide. Not all proteins are created equal. So to produce 1 kilogram of beef, the environmental cost is significantly higher than 1 kilogram of poultry or plant-based protein. Beef production generates roughly 60 kilos of greenhouse gases per kilogram of meat. That's a lot of methane gas. And in contrast, poultry generates about 6 kilograms, and peas or tofu generate less than 1. It's easy to see that by simply swapping a beef entree for chicken or vegetarian option, an event of 500 people can reduce its catering emissions by up to 80%. To put that in perspective, that's the equivalent of taking dozens of cars off the road for a year, just by changing one menu item. Next slide. It's not just about the land dwellers either, it's about the water. Agriculture accounts for about 70% of global freshwater withdrawals. A single quarter-pound beef burger requires approximately 425 gallons of water to produce. That's enough water for a person to shower every day for 2 weeks, or my teenager for 3 days. When we scale that to a conference-sized dinner, we're talking about millions of gallons of virtual water embedded in the meal. Moving toward pulses, grains, or even sustainable seafood drastically reduces this thirst of our events. Next slide. Efficiency is key to sustainability. Livestock takes up nearly 80% of global agricultural land, yet it provides only 18% of the world's calories. So when we choose plant-forward menus, we're advocating for land efficiency. Using land to grow crops directly for human consumption requires significantly less space than growing crops to feed livestock. This leaves more room for forests, carbon sinks, and biodiversity. And as event professionals, our space isn't just the ballroom anymore, it's the land required to feed our attendees. Next slide. So now you might be wondering, does giving up one beef meal really move the needle? And if we look at it in isolation, it does seem small, but the impact of sustainability is cumulative. Think of it exactly as you would a health goal or a new diet. Eating one healthy meal doesn't immediately change your physique, and one cheat meal doesn't ruin it. However, 100 meals later, that's where the transformation happens. It's the same with our events. Every switch we make, every time we choose a lower impact protein, it adds up. When we scale these small, consistent choices across dozens of events and thousands of attendees, those small reps contribute to a whole lot of global good. Small adjustments is key. With every dinner you serve, every conference meal you offer, by making conscious choices, these all add up to a larger cumulative impact. Now you might be saying, yeah, that's easier said than done. And for many, you're right. So try to make small changes. Rather than making beef and chicken the default, make chicken and vegetarian the default and have people opt in for the beef. And then maybe the next time around, you make vegetarian the default and have people opt in for chicken. Inform and educate your attendees and your key opinion leaders about what they should expect. Knowledge is power, and if you provide them with the info up front, make them feel like they're contributing to the whole, you're going to have more buy-in, and then eventually you won't need an opt-in option anymore. Next slide. Every menu we design is a statement of values, and by choosing lower impact proteins, we turn our events from high consumption machines into models of sustainability. We can feed our guests well while also respecting the planet that hosts us. Have those conversations with the caterers, your chef, your culinary staff. Encourage them to get creative, and most of the time they're open and look forward to thinking outside of the box. Try it with your next menu. Thank you.
I want to address a question that came up in the chat, and you can all see it there. Many argue local beef is less negative impactful than imported vegetables. Completely false. Completely and totally false. And I'll explain to you why. It's because beef give off methane, which is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So I don't care if you eat mangoes in January, it is nowhere near the environmental harm that a cow does over its life. Time. So it is just inherent in their nature that cows give off methane. And this is why we keep doing the Sustainable Events Farm, is because of this kind of thing. Now, years ago, I thought that made sense until I started doing the math, and the math shows very clearly that beef is a huge portion of the emissions that happen. So keep importing the vegetables. It is far less damaging to the environment than that beef next door. So let's head over. So first of all, thank you, Terry. And can you guys give Terry some love in the comments, because this was really stepping out of the her comfort zone when I asked her to do this, and she did it live. Other people actually recorded it, but she was so she stretched her comfort zone for us today for the good of the planet. So give her some love. We're going to talk now about our first step and our biggest area for really making a change. And this is something that I would like everyone to work on. If we can eliminate food waste at our events, think of a massive step forward that we could make as an industry. We are still getting a lot of pushback, people saying we can't donate food or that's not acceptable. And I think that we as an industry really need to move the needle in this area. So I can't think of anyone better to talk about this than Georgie Pyle. Georgie comes to us from hospitality and hotel background, and you know, the good news is I think this is very fixable. The better news is Georgie is going to tell us how. Over to you, Georgie.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Natalie. This is truly a topic, as sad as it makes me, I truly enjoy discussing the opportunities that we have, because I really think that for so many of us in this industry, food is so often right there at the root of the gatherings that bring us together. And likewise, I truly do believe that our approach to food waste can truly bring us all together as well. So we know about the impact right here at the top of the hierarchy. We're talking about food waste because it truly does generate a huge amount of methane and a huge amount of impact, not only from an environmental perspective, but we'll get into as well the cost savings that are attached to these food waste reductions also. So food waste generating methane 80 times more potent than CO2 over 20 years. This is truly, as Natalie mentioned, one of the most fixable areas of opportunity for us. And that's why it's really right here at the top of the hierarchy. Next slide, please, team. So as I mentioned, it's not just an environmental, it's a business issue as well. For those of you who aren't familiar with some of those local statistics, here in Canada alone, over 46% of all food is actually wasted. And about 41% of that food is actually considered 100% avoidable. Now that alone, that avoidable food waste actually represents about 58 billion in lost value every year. So this is one of those discussions that I really think it's easy to engage a lot of different individuals because even if you're not considering that CO2 impact, there's a very high chance that you're looking at making some savings, not only when you look at paying for that food that isn't consumed, but the cost that you're actually spending to pay again to remove it. Now, globally, nearly 1 in 5 meals are wasted, and food loss and waste contributes up to 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please, Sarash. So you'll notice I sort of lean towards the rule of threes here. So today, to keep it simple, I just wanted to talk about 3 key strategies that everyone can take home with them to start reducing food waste at each and every step of the process. It really does occur throughout the entire event life cycle, and as do the solutions to this problem. So first off, we'll talk a little bit about measuring and monitoring. So how can you start taking steps today to actually determine what's being wasted, where those items are being wasted, how much and when? Prep and production planning, probably one of the most key areas where we have an opportunity just to prevent waste through smarter planning. How can we actually bring food into focus right from the get-go at the beginning of those conversations? And then probably my favorite side of this discussion is upcycling and food rescue. I think here is where we really have the opportunity to drive some major social impacts as well. We have an opportunity to capture this food and stop viewing it as food waste, to continue to view it as salvageable ingredients or meals that we can actually provide to our community members. Next slide, please, team. So, of course, they say all that can be measured can be improved. Likewise, all that can be measured can also be reduced. This is an area that I really enjoy diving into food waste data, because I think depending on how you approach this issue, how you approach capturing this data, there's actually quite a few opportunities. So on this side, I've sort of broken it up into two ways. One where you could start really simple to start taking these measurements. Another option where, of course, you can start diving a little bit deeper. And keep in mind, for all of this, you can do this just as a single individual, as an event planner, working with your teams. This measurement doesn't always require any additional tools or technology. So starting simple, one very, very simple tip that I like to recommend is just to capture a sense of your food waste ratio. So how much food waste are you actually generating per guest, per food and beverage cover? And there's a very, very simple way to do that. I actually have a little prop today, one of my favorite little tools. So your standard little organic bin that you're going to find in most kitchens, most food and beverage operations, research shows that one full bin of food waste is typically going to weigh between 80 to 100 kilograms. So you can basically use that as a very, very simple guideline as you start to calculate these numbers for any of the events that you're working with. So take account of those organic bins, get a little estimate going of the total volume of food waste that you might have generated during that event, and then break that down by the number of guests that you have. So for example, an event with 1,200 guests generates, let's say, 5.5 full organic bins of food waste. And now keep in mind here, you really do want to look at the prep side as well as the plate side. If you want, you could have some fun and actually split that up. If you have a separate bin of food waste for all of that prep and a separate bin for plate waste, you could actually kind of get a little bit more granular with your calculations there. But realistically, if we calculate that at about 550,000 grams of food waste, you're looking at about 458 grams of food waste per guest. Now, that's something that you can work with your client or the group, bringing this information into your briefings, into your debriefs after the event. Or you could actually look even at annual business, at any repeat events that you see, and see how that number might actually fluctuate depending on perhaps the ingredients that you had featured on your menus, the style of service that you had, and so forth. Now, if you do want to dive a little deeper, of course, you can always track those key items that maybe are the higher cost items, or those items like Terry were discussing that actually has a higher impact from a CO2 standpoint as well. Or work at identifying some patterns within specific menus, event spaces, meal periods, and then really, really fun, if you're eager, audit that organic bin. So if you're wanting to dive a little bit deeper and you have the capacity to do so, having someone actually designated to sit there by the bin and track some of those items as they come back, I think that's a really great chance where you can really see the difference between maybe those items you believed were your top performing items on the menu, and then compare that to the components that you actually see returning back on the plate. Next slide, please, team. Now, of course, there are some more advanced systems that you can utilize, but I really just want to drive home that you can measure the food waste in very simple ways, as we discussed earlier. You can estimate with something that you have in every single venue, as I mentioned, your organic bin. But if you are looking at diving a little bit deeper, as I mentioned, these are some really great systems that you can look at, ranging all the way from your more advanced systems that utilize image recognition and artificial intelligence to actually determine each and every item that's going into those organic bins. Orbisk is a great example of a platform that allows for that. There's also some more mid-level digital tracking platforms that do a similar thing, but without the artificial intelligence component. And LeanPath is a perfect example of something that you can look into for a little bit of more robust tracking, but again, with a bit of an investment tied to it, of course, as well. Now, one really great tool that I love to mention here, one close friend of ours at the Sustainable Events Forum, Ben from Better Table, actually has a fantastic app called Bon Appify. So a really low barrier measurement tool that you can tap into here. Really works well as a simple app that anyone can access. He actually has a free trial file available on his website, but for you to start looking at this information. It's food sustainability auditing, it's tracking, providing insights, and actually driving some measurable results in your venue. Next slide, please. Now, of course, there's some key opportunities during planning and preparation as well. Now, we always like to remind on this key fact, food waste isn't inevitable. It's designed into our events, into our food and beverage operations. So a lot of the time, the greatest opportunity that we do have to reduce actually starts right in that planning and preparation stage. We actually had a great call on food waste a few weeks back, some really, really great tips and tricks that the event planners in the audience were bringing up, anything from, let's say, moving up your early bird deadline, making sure that your registration fee captures at least 95% of the registrations ahead of time, making sure you have that final guarantee 5 days prior, especially for your smaller events. So the options really do go on and on. A few tips here on this side, breaking my rule of threes just this once, but you can also look even further at, let's say, designing your menus with shared ingredients. So actually cross-utilizing those ingredients to ensure you're improving efficiency for the culinary team, but also potentially minimizing that wastage, as you can tap into those other spaces to utilize those ingredients when you're running low in one area. And then also adjusting your portions and service style is huge. We also know that buffets in particular generate a huge amount of food waste when in comparison to a la carte service. So if you can shift in that direction, that's always going to make a very significant impact. And then one thing I always like to mention is also just organizing your spaces for easy waste sorting as well. You want to make sure you're actually capturing that organic waste in the correct bin rather than losing that opportunity to compost it and seeing that mixed in with your landfill waste. Next slide, please. Now, how can we really look at transforming the impact? Again, this is the area I think where I really love to share these stories of opportunity and of change that we can influence in our communities, where we can take the work that we do and actually create a direct positive impact, not just considering minimizing the negative, but actually generating something truly positive. So not all surplus, of course, should even be considered waste in the first place. And as Natalie mentioned, although there is sometimes a bit of hesitation towards food rescue, you really are, as a general rule, protected by the legislation. If you're donating food that is still safe for consumption, you're unlikely to run into any legal ramifications. It's something that as long as you're doing this in good faith, you actually are protected by the laws, especially here in Ontario. Now, globally, food, of course, is just seen as a missed opportunity to actually feed people in need. We know food insecurity is a rising issue, even here locally in Toronto, where I'm situated today. So we really want to ask, what opportunities in each of your events have you seen to actually give this surplus food a second life? This could be in the upcycling stage, it could be food rescue or redistribution as well. Next slide, please, team. So one thing that I always love to highlight are the incredible partners that we actually have at our disposal. This food rescue and recycling doesn't have to be done by yourself. It's actually really great when you know that you have this network that's focused on making sure that this food goes to either the right mouths to feed or to some really creative and innovative opportunities as well. So one team that I'll highlight here in a local lens is actually Civil Pours. They're doing some really fantastic work looking at the waste that we generate in the beverage industry in particular citrus and things like, let's say, avocado pits, coffee grinds. So taking some of these ingredients that are seen as waste and actually upcycling them into beautiful distillates that can be reutilized in your cocktail program. So again, a really great way, I think, to bring that sustainability to life, to really be able to taste and feel those initiatives in action. And then more at a broader scale, many of you actually might be familiar with groups like Second Harvest, Too Good To Go, that really recover and redistribute these ingredients and these meals at a large scale to our community. Now, when it comes to individual events, I think one of the best partners that we sort of have at our disposal are organizations like B1 to Give and La Table des Chefs. That way, if you're looking more at a one-off opportunity, if you know you have a client that's particularly focused in rescuing this food waste, working with one of these two teams is fantastic. Be One to Give in particular, very, very simple app-based. You post up the food that you have available to donate. They can collect any day of the week except for Sundays, and they guarantee redistribution to a local food security organization here in Toronto within 2 hours of collection. Similarly, La Table des Chefs really opens the door if we're looking at buffet items. They're a bit more broad in what they can accept. So depending on what style of event you have, I would highly recommend looking into these two partnerships, because again, with these partnerships in place, it makes it that much easier for all of us to move from intention into action.
Thank you so much, Georgie. Are you sensing that she has a little bit of passion about food waste, like just a little tiny bit? But it's absolutely one of the biggest areas that we as event people can have impact. So thank you to everyone, Melissa, Liz, Matt, Hannah, Madison, Terry, Georgie, Robert. These are all really busy people who give their time and dedication to everything that we do. So let's land the plane. We want to bring it all back in for you. How do you work through the 6 tiers of the hierarchy of sustainable event actions? And I want to give you a lens to look at it from. So I want you to remember 2 things. You have emissions and you have waste. We overemphasize waste and we underemphasize emissions. Emissions are what is giving us climate change right now. Everything that you've looked at today is a directional guidance for the things that we need to take action on, and food waste sits at the top of that. Now let's talk about raising the floor, not reaching for the ceiling or perfection. Because the last couple of years, what we've done is we've spent too much time absolutely concerned about being perfect on our sustainability. We all know we run events. There is no perfect. We've had how many flubs today, and it's all good, right? Like the show goes on, the information gets passed on, the event happens. What we have to do on sustainability is we have to worry about the things that are really creating the most damage and seeing if we can all bring that floor up. That means spreading the word to your colleagues, to your venues. It means asking about food waste on your RFPs, because one of us taking 1 million steps doesn't make a dent in the system, but 1 million of us taking a small step, that's when we start to see systemic change. So here at TSEF, we're here to really support you. We're a bunch of industry event professionals really working towards making sustainability a bigger part of what we're doing. And we need to hear from you. We need feedback and interaction. We're always here to help. I think when you decide to act and you make a difference out in really the event world, we'll all start to benefit because it'll just become the norm. It'll just become the way that we do things. I'm still hearing pushback from venues about food waste, about protein choices, and you as buyers, you've got the levers to change that. So I want to highlight a couple of things, and that is next Thursday, Kelly Powers will be publishing our hierarchy of sustainable events in the CMEE News. I think Ignite Magazine has a podcast coming through where we talk about the sustainable event hierarchy. And last but not least, I want to thank this event is brought to you by some great people. Arash and Edwin, thank you very much. Robert Thompson, thank you. AV Canada for all of your support. You've got EMA Marketing, Melissa at CCR, Jennifer at Explore Waterloo, Ottawa Tourism, Explore Edmonton. We will be putting on an event with the Toronto Climate Week in June. You can look for that. And at the end of April, we will be teaching a course on how to calculate your own event carbon emissions. So I think that's Earth Day for event people. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much to everybody. Have an amazing Earth Day. Go do something big for us. And thank you. Bye for now. Does the meme with the guy with the makeup all over his face.
Okay, are we ready? Well, that's an easy chunk. I can do that one. I just got 3 words.
I want to talk to the talent department.
So,
Oh, I have talents just in other ways. Saturdays and the UK government are now seriously exploring geoengineering.
Scientists. You said Saturdays in the.
What was that? You're supposed to look in my eyes and fall in love.
Look deep, deep into your
I
eyes.
know. We should keep arms length away.
Well, this morning with the podcast, they were like, make a fist. You've got to keep it. And I kept talking with my hands and knocking the.
Straighten your, no, don't get close to me. Arm's length.
Get away from me. You have cooties, Robert cooties.
Okay, do I look good?
yes.
You look amazing, darling.
Good.
We definitely have a tequila deficit.
Ocean acidification.
It's not acidification.
But that's what it says,
No.
acidification.
Acidification.
Ocean acidification.
You just really like
Say it again.
acidification.